Okay, thank you all for coming. I know we probably don't necessarily need the microphone, but with the live streaming, we're going to use it anyway, so it's nice and clear through there for anyone that's listening. So, welcome all. This is the agenda for the meeting tonight. So, first of all, we're going to start with a bit of an update of what's occurred on the site over the past 12 months and what the next steps are for EPA and the principal contractor, Enviro Pacific. I'll then hand over to Luke, the project manager from Enviro Pacific, who will give a rundown of who they are and what they plan to do out on the site. We'll then open it up to questions from you guys, and also questions from anyone who is listening on the live stream as well. We have a person who will be monitoring those questions on the live stream. We may not be able to get to all of them, but they will try and ask as many of those as possible as well. And then, we'll close out the meeting. So we've got plenty of time for it. We've got an hour and a half. I'm sure it won't go for that long. I think the most important part of these meetings are generally the question time. So once we get to there, happy to take as long as we need to get through people's questions. Okay, an overview of the site. I'm sure most of you are aware of this, but it's a rural property, 15 kilometres south of Conaiva. Quite dense bushland out there. We've found a number of areas. We suspect there has been illegal activity, burying of waste. Approximately 30 have been identified currently. The investigation has been very tricky, and those that know the area and know this type of bush understand how difficult it is. It's very dense bush. So we've used a number of different methods to try and identify all the sites or suspected sites to ensure that anything that has been taken out there will be removed. Over the past 12 months, we've worked very closely with other agencies and organisations, and we really appreciate their support through that time as well. It is an interagency operation out there, and these are the other agencies that have been involved with us over the past 12 months. From that, we do form an interagency operations team. This team has been put together in line with other high-risk sites across the state. These are the key agencies involved at this site. This group is a governance group and a decision-making group as well. So we take any key issues or key updates to this group, and we're able to get those communications out to their forums, to their organisations, but also make some really key decisions within this team as well. So I spoke about the difficulties at this site and trying to identify all the areas and the different methods that we've had to put in place to identify all the different areas. It is very large, and those that have been out to this site understand how large and remote it is. We've identified a number of areas now, a number of areas that we know there's waste in, and also a number of areas that we suspect there's waste in, and that's what this map is. This isn't a finished product. So as we're working through the project over the next 12 months, 18 months, we do suspect to find more, and we do also suspect that some of these locations may not have anything in them, but we're going to check them anyway. In February this year, last year, we did remove 600 kilos of highly hazardous waste from the site. This was part of the investigation works that took place in 2019, where we actually uncovered 3 areas on the site to understand better what was there, so that we could move into this next phase of works and start to plan this next phase of works. As you can see, we did uncover some highly hazardous waste there. So in February, we were able to remove that waste, as well as 15,000 litres of liquid waste that was uncovered at that time. In April, we engaged West Wimmera Shire Council. We were able to work with them through this period to upgrade the roads on the site, and the works that we've been doing, these works have expedited the process, expedited where we're at now with the primary contractor, being able to get on site and get straight into the work. Very sandy location out there, and without these roads and without the work that the council did with us, we would find it really difficult for any movement across the site. Flora and fauna assessment. So obviously a really key part to this site is making sure that we're having as little impact over this project as possible, leaving as little footprint as possible. So we wanted to do a native vegetation and flora and fauna assessment with an external party. And look, this work was undertaken in conjunction with DELP as well. Through that process, there's been a number of recommendations that has came out in relation to protecting really key parts of the flora and fauna out there. And those recommendations have now been adopted within project plans with Enviro-Pacific, and they'll be followed right throughout the project so that we leave as little a footprint on this site as possible right throughout the cleanup. Hardstand construction in September. So another great piece of work we were able to do late last year was work with local contractors, McClure, and engage them to construct this hardstand. You'll see later on in this presentation, or you might have seen in the drone footage already, it's already been put to good use. This again has saved us, a couple of months up front of setting up this area with Enviro-Pacific. It's given them the chance to get out there and get straight into the work. So, we really appreciate being able to work with these local companies to get this work done. Groundwater monitoring. So this has been continuing ever since we did find this site. We've been doing quarterly monitoring at the site. We installed 3 wells, 2 on site and 1 as a background well. These are monitored quarterly, as well as some other off-site wells we have access to. What's been fantastic is that there has been no signs of contamination throughout any of this sampling. And throughout the project, we do know that there's going to be more wells on site, and this network is certainly going to expand, and we're going to get a greater understanding of what's going on site as well. Site security and safety. So obviously a really key one for us is making sure that community and any other people that are interested in the site do stay away, and their safety is at the front of our mind. So we've made sure that is in place. The site's secured. It's always been fenced and signed. We've got motion detecting cameras on site and have had for a long period of time, and they've just been upgraded. And we're constantly doing drone flights and officer inspections out there as well, just to ensure that all of those measures are still in place. The legal investigation. So EPA has continued to put this very detailed case together in relation to the legal investigation. As the site is, it's been very complex, and there's an absolute mountain of evidence involved here. We are very happy to be able to announce that the charges are expected to be laid this Friday on the 26th of March against the property owner, Mr. Graham White. There will be evidence that we do continue to gather throughout this project with Enviro-Pacific and other contractors involved. That leads us to the procurement of our principal contractor. So anyone that has been through one of a procurement process understands it is a very detailed process, and rightly so. You want to make sure that you are getting the best possible supplier, and we went through a very stringent procurement process, and Enviro-Pacific did come out on top of that. Their experience and expertise in this sort of work really set them apart. And we've been out on site with them now for 4 weeks, but been working with them for a longer period of time than that. And you know, we've been very impressed with their work, and we're very happy to be out on site with them. So site mobilisation, as I said, started about 4 weeks ago. EPS commenced. This is included in the mobilisation and establishment of the site, and you can see the hard stand there being put to use. Triage structure is starting to be erected there, and site offices, upgrading facilities, those new security cameras right across the site that I've already spoken about is all in place. So all is moving along really well, and excavation and waste removal will be starting very soon in April. It's probably about time for me to hand over to someone who can give some more detail on that, and introduce Luke, the project manager from Enviro-Pacific. Thanks, Luke.
Thanks for the kind introduction, Julian. We're pretty excited to be working with EPA on this project. A bit about who we are and what we do. So we're a specialist infrastructure services provider specialising in the environmental remediation and groundwater contamination field. We basically provide services associated with cleaning up contaminated and hazardous sites. We're an environmentally focused contractor, and we deliver about 500 projects nationally each year. So some detail around the services we provide. So our specialist for this particular project is around the site remediation. So we provide specialist services in brownfield sites and other contaminated site remediation. We're industry leaders in soil remediation, PFAS remediation, specialised demolition, and we're also asbestos contractors, so we're a Class A asbestos removalist. We also have a water treatment team dealing with contaminated groundwater and surface water with in-house design and construction capabilities across the country. We have a hazardous waste facility in Altona where we're able to treat contaminated soil through a thermal process. It's one of 3 facilities in Victoria. It's probably the highest capacity facility in Victoria, and we service the whole country with that particular facility. So for this particular project, we're working with Cleanaway as our waste management and treatment and disposal contractor. Coffee Environments for our environmental consultancy services, and then McClure's as our civil contractor. So I guess to talk through the waste removal process from the excavation phase through to disposal, the process involves obviously excavating the waste methodically, taking care in doing so to make sure we don't damage any of the containers as they're being removed. From the excavation phase, the containers are then taken to our triage facility, where Cleanaway will assess the containers, classify them in accordance with the dangerous goods requirements, give them an ID, package or repackage them further for transport, and then store them on site prior to transport with an aim to remove all waste within 5 days of being processed. From there it gets transported to one of Cleanaway's licensed facilities in either Victoria or South Australia. So our storage facility is a 25 by 60 metre triage structure, so basically a large marquee with outsides on it. All the waste in there gets divided into different classes and is stored in appropriate bunding once it's been processed prior to transport. It's an all-weather facility, so we can operate it in all weather conditions safely. So the waste transport, so Cleanaway will be looking after the waste transport of the dangerous goods. All of the vehicles are dangerous goods licensed with appropriate manifests and waste transport paperwork, and the trucks will all travel along designated dangerous goods routes with approximately 1 disposal truck movement per day from the site to either the Victoria, so the Melbourne facilities or the Adelaide facility. So Coffee Environments will be undertaking the sampling throughout the work, so each of the excavations will be validated through soil sampling, and also doing some more groundwater assessment around the sites based on what we see when we're doing the excavation works. EPA have engaged an independent accredited auditor to sign off on the site throughout the works and ensure that everything is being complied with. And that's it for us.
Thank you very much, Luke. Look, that concludes the presentation part. As I said, usually this is the most important part of these community meetings anyway. In terms of the questions coming from anyone either in the room or actually on the live stream, we've got a number of people in the room that are willing to take questions if they are directed their way. Obviously myself and Luke. Steve Pritchard might not be here from CFA Ash yet, but will be here shortly. WorkSafe, we've got Nikos, who's happy to take any questions if they go that way, and Paul Brumby, CEO of the council as well, happy to take questions. So there is a microphone that Liv will be roaming around with. If anyone has any questions, open it up to you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. The word hazardous goods has got a big window from low to the serious end up the other end. What hazardous goods have you found, and how toxic are they?
I could answer that, but I'll hand it over to Luke to answer that because he's probably got the better technical knowledge.
Yeah, so there's been some material which is quite volatile. So there's a lot of flammable materials and things on site. There's been some chemicals used in fumigation, which aren't exactly pleasant, and I think they're the ones that have already been removed from site. With there was a really good understanding of how much of that material was going to be on site, and that's, according to the records, all been removed from site. There's dry packed waste, chlorine pellets and things from pool cleaning and things like that. Lab waste, so in small packs. So it's a wide range of waste. I think we're thinking about 60% of the waste is going to be of the flammable nature.
Any PCBs or contaminants that will last for 10, 20, 30,000 years?
We're not expecting to find PCBs in this waste, but in saying that, there is it's too soon to say what's there and what isn't based on what the.
Are you testing for it?
Yes, yeah, we will be testing for a wide. Basically, anything we could potentially find, we will test for. It's a really broad screen, and the Coffee and the auditor will also assist with that to make sure we capture everything that could be there.
Sorry, one more question. The layer that these goods have been stored in, how high above the clay layer are they, or are they at the clay layer?
From what we've seen so far, they're sitting on the first clay layer.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I think that's when it got hard to excavate. That's when they've stopped.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yep.
So this is from Ross, and he's joined on behalf of Victorian Malleefowl Recovery Group, and he'd like some assurances that remediation works will minimise clearing and damage to undisturbed bushland, especially at the eastern end of the site. And then, I guess his major question is what actions will be taken to minimise impact of flora, fauna and the undisturbed areas.
Yep, and really good question. I did have a slide that related to that, but to go into more detail, the eastern side of the block obviously abuts the Little Desert. The positive thing about the site is only the western half of the block has been impacted. So the eastern half actually doesn't need any access from our contractors or any clean-up activity in that area. In terms of the area we do have to clean up, and under the flora and fauna assessment, there will be a number of recommendations that are put in place each time we move to a new area, and those recommendations they're around sticking to already developed tracks. They're around making sure we really minimise any clearing of understory. They are about not touching any canopy trees or larger trees as well. And each site we move to, we're going to clearly map out and identify the area that we do need to disturb and do need to uncover that has been disturbed previously, and other areas won't be disturbed. Any other questions? Yep.
What is the approximate time do you think this is all going to happen in? And we're talking 2 or 3 years, or what?
Yeah, and look, we again, we do have to wait and see what we find and the extent of it, because the nature of our site with it buried, it does make it very difficult. But we do have some estimations now working with Enviro Pacific, and we are looking around that 12-month to 18-month mark. We are hoping that it can be completed within that time, but we do understand that we may run into some issues as well.
And at the end of all this, the rehabilitation of that front area, especially the hard stand areas, is that going to go back to bush?
Yeah, look, in terms of the rehabilitation of the actual areas, the regeneration on this site actually is really good. We've seen areas regenerate, within 6 months of us being on site. Those investigation works in 2019 are a really good example of that. We've seen that regeneration come back naturally. In terms of the hard stand area, that was a planned out area after our flora and fauna assessment, and that was the area it was identified as. It didn't have any shrubs, just had some low level grass. There was some wallaby grass that was identified in another section of the paddock that has been fenced off, that we're not going to disturb. So we identified that area where the hard stand is as the best area to leave as little a footprint as possible.
So you're going to leave the hard stand area?
The aim at the moment is to leave the hard stand area, but it's not set in stone or anything like that. But EPA will recover costs for this site, and part of recovering costs will be trying to sell the property as a clean property at the end, and that hard stand may provide value to whoever buys that property.
Thank you. I just noticed at the start of one of the videos, there was a township and then Lemon Springs site. I just believe that the name of a town should be left out of it. We don't want people thinking that there's a township in the West Wimmera Shire that's got a chemical dump. And if it could be referred to as the Lemon Springs dump, it's just a small request, but I think it's something that should be considered.
Yeah, certainly, and we certainly call it the Lemon Springs Clean Up and Remediation Project, and what that slide you're referring to talks to is how far that distance actually is from that township, but certainly take your point on board, and we'll continue to refer to it as Lemon Springs.
Thank you.
Anyone else? None online, Reece? Yep.
You've been sampling the water now for quite a long time, and you say that there's no contaminants coming back. So you're saying to us that chemically, the results that you got at the beginning and now are still the same?
Yeah, that's right, and not even just from the beginning. We've also got historical data as well. From Grampians Wimmera Water, and it's in line with all that historical data as well. Look, we have found some that have been breached. It has been minimal, and as I said, we've only been able to uncover 3 of the locations in the investigation phase. There's been estimations that it'll be under 10% that have been compromised, but it's going to be different from site to site. And as I said, there's possibly 30 sites, so it'll be different from site to site. From those breach containers though, we do believe they do sit on top of the first clay layer or aquatard. and we do hope that there is a level of protection there. But as Luke's detailed, these guys are experts in soil remediation, groundwater remediation, things like that as well. And whatever needs to be done out on this site will be done. Yes?
Sorry, one more question. The gentleman who owns this property obviously is using this to dump chemicals. It makes sense to me that he's got the power and the resources to do that. He's also been dumping in other parts of Victoria as well, and not necessarily as far away from his original business. So have you connected the dots together to realise that there are other sites around Victoria which are connected to him?
Look, our legal team and investigations team have been working on this for some time, and it has been a very, very thorough investigation. I can't go into the details on it, as you're probably aware. I can detail our side, and that charges are expected to be laid this week, but I can't go into further details. But I can just assure you that our team has been working very hard on this. I think Rob's got a question up the back. So I'd say in relation to that, Rob, again, it's really critical evidence as part of the investigation, and that's why we do know. We are able to track waste, and EPA are in the business of tracking waste, and we do expect that as we move through this project and take more waste out of the ground, more evidence will be able to be tracked and identified, and those volumes will be able to be confirmed for other sorts of waste as well. Yes?
So are you possible to track from this bloke who gave him the material? Are you able to go up the chain to find out who's been dumping illegally? Because the people who passed this material on to him obviously knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, and again, forms part of our investigation, and our team have been working really hard on putting those pieces of puzzle together. But there are really stringent tracking systems in place currently through EPA, and we will be able to use that data. Yes.
Is his company still providing those services, removing toxic chemicals?
His company is not. No. No, his company is not. No, his company is currently in liquidation, I believe. I probably can't go into too much detail around it all. I apologise.
What are your hours of operations going to be? Are you going to be working weekends and things like that?
I'll hand over to Luke for that one.
Yeah, I guess our standard operating hours is 7 till 5, Monday to Friday. We do work Saturdays, but probably this site we won't, based on where some of the guys are coming from. And our program, we haven't included working Saturdays on the site, but yeah, we'll be mobilising 7 till 5 every day.
Without working weekends then, do you expect a lot of travellers workers to travel in then rather than stay here? Or?
Quite a few of our guys will probably do 2 weeks on, a week off sort of thing. So there'll be guys coming and going, but yeah, there'll be a lot of people staying in town, both Kaniva and Neil and those sort of places. Some of us have moved up here longer term, so we're looking forward to working with the local community and giving a bit back, which would be good. When we're fully operational, there'll probably be about 25 to 30 people on site. So we've got our civil guys doing the excavation work out in the field, the Cleanaway guys doing the triage operations, and then the project team sort of running the show in the office. So it's a pretty decent team of people. Yeah, so we've got a full office set up. So I'm full-time on site. My boss is obviously based out of Melbourne, but he'll definitely show his head out a few times. But yeah, it's a good team of people. We've got some really great people involved in the project from our end, which is good.
How do you dispose of those chemicals? Incinerators or what?
It depends on the chemical. So things that are flammable, they'll generally be taken to a licensed facility and then From there, they get used for energy recovery. So they burn them in cement kilns and things like that. So they actually get an energy product out of the flammables. Some of the other things are neutralised before being disposed of through trade waste and things like that, so they're no longer an issue. Some of the nastier stuff is stabilised with cement and then put into landfill, stabilising it, removing the risk of it leaching into various landfills and things like that. So there's a few options for disposal, depending on the risk associated with it.
And have you come across a project as intense as this before?
Our team's working on a project very similar to this at the moment. It's a different sort of scale. It's above ground chemicals, but from a scale point of view with this level of dumping, no. But we're definitely equipped to deal with it.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate this, like the worst disaster in Victoria in 100 years or what?
I'd say no, it's not the worst disaster because we can manage it. It can be cleaned up.
Yeah, okay.
The worst disaster couldn't be cleaned up. So this one, we can
you.
get the waste out of the ground.
Any other questions?
You hate me, I'm an umpire, so. There's a couple. So I think one of them has trained once, and I've got to get him training again. Here, I think he trained here. He's sitting at the front. But yeah, there'll be a few guys that might be interested in having a kick. So.
Yep.
When do you think you'll be in a position to give us an update again? We're talking a couple of months, 3, 4, 6 months.
Probably after
Yeah, look, we've been doing these Ask Needs, and we have been giving updates on a monthly basis as well through email chains and media releases. And anyone can certainly join that list. I believe it's the next slide. Can register to join that list, so get those updates. In terms of a face-to-face, it's an Ask Needs basis, to be totally honest. If we find that there is a need for it, and we're in regular contact with Paul and Council, then we'll certainly call another community meeting and update you guys on what's going on out there. I would say that will be after some waste is removed and we can give you some detail on what's going on the site. Okay, well, if that's it, thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. Appreciate the questions. We hope we've been able to provide you with all the answers you wanted tonight. As I said, if you've got any follow-up questions or you do want to join the mailing list, feel free to. We're going to be around for some time. You'll see us in the community. We're always happy to have a chat. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you all later. Cheers.